Redivining Yourself is a podcast for those ready to reclaim their power, embrace transformation, and consciously create their next chapter. Through honest conversations, soulful insights, and practical wisdom, each episode explores what it means to choose yourself, release limiting beliefs, and navigate life's transitions with courage and grace. Welcome back to Redivining Yourself, the podcast that talks about how you can better navigate what it means to be a spiritual being having a human experience. And along those lines, it can be a bit hard to be a human some days. And one of the things that I have always tried to focus on is in that humanness is what it feels like. What it feels like to be a human, what it feels like to be in a body. And interestingly enough, this comes up a lot when I actually work on other people's bodies. So let me define this. And this is divining and defining a little bit more about who I am. So I just want you to know where I am coming from because I think it's helpful to understand my perspective. Maybe it'll help your perspective on what your lived experience is in your body. Being a Reiki master, and I think I took my first Reiki class. It was from a friend of mine. We were at our kids' soccer game. I didn't really know what she did for a living, but she always fascinated me. And she said casually, "Hey, I'm doing a Reiki 1 class this weekend. Would you be interested?" I said, "Well, I don't know what it is, but maybe." And so she described what it is to me. It's feeling energy, and, it's just you learning how to heal and heal other people as well as yourself. And I thought, okay, that's probably something I could use. This sounds intriguing. And what she offered to me first was, she said, maybe you would like to experience it in your body in order to understand it better. So I'll do a session on you and then you can make your decision. And I've heard this happen with other people in my arena, both clients and other practitioners. So I go to her wonderful, it was just such a calm, serene space that she had her table and her room in a building. And I lay down on the table and she went to my ankles and my feet and she held them. And approximately 5 minutes into, it wasn't long, I know that, into our session, I started to see colors. My eyes are closed, and behind my eyes, in my sphere, I'm starting to see colors. Cobalt blue, purple, green, like emerald green. I'm just seeing these swirling colors. And I said to her, is this a thing? Is it possible that I might actually see colors just from you working on me? And she said, "Oh, that's interesting. I suppose that's a possibility. I mean, seems to be happening." And so I would describe to her what I was seeing, what colors. And the question on her part was, does it seem like it's related to anything? And I had been a yoga instructor by that time for probably 5 years. And I had taken hatha yoga, So I had learned, the basic umbrella of over which all the other yogas. So if you're not familiar with yoga, hatha, it's spelled Hatha. It's, some people say hatha yoga, but it's actually hatha. And ha is sun and ta is moon. And so you have the yin and the yang, right? You have both of those energies. And it's a very broad umbrella under which all of the other yogic styles, so Ashtanga, Vinyasa, all other yogas fall underneath Hatha Yoga. And so when you learn that, you learn a great deal about the body. And not so much anatomically, but it was just a way of you providing some poses that anybody could do, essentially. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I had already had this experience somewhat of, we learned yogic philosophies, the yamas, the niyamas, the 8 limbs of yoga. So there were some spiritual teachings that I was learning within that and underneath that umbrella of studying and teaching Hatha Yoga. And so this wasn't entirely new to me to sort of work with the body, to work with energies. It was more just, I didn't know exactly what that protocol looked like. But I was deeply fascinated and delighted by the fact that I was seeing colors behind my eyes, and it was up to me to interpret what that meant. What does it mean when you see cobalt blue? Now, where I arrived at in that interpretation, because I had learned about chakras, right, those energy centers of the body, and I had learned where they all reside, right? Red is at your pelvic floor, it's your root chakra, and then it goes into orange right around your just below your navel, and then we go into yellow at the solar plexus and green at the heart, and we have the turquoise blue for the throat, and then we go up into cobalt blue at your third eye area, and then up into purple for your crown. And that's like the most simplistic version I can give you of chakras. There's so much more to be said about those, but for the interest of what we're talking about today, just know that, the way I chose to interpret this, seeing colors, was what I could see in my body and feel in my body was that they were aligned with my chakras and what I was experiencing. So when I saw cobalt blue, that was my third eye. That was my intuition. That was the middle of my forehead. That was this incredibly just beautiful sensation in my body. And seeing the emerald green and knowing and touching into my heart and sensing what that color, was there a correlation between the two? And for me, it was every bit of that. It felt very, whether that was me opening up or tapping into or healing those parts, giving them some love, it was great because it was a way that I could feel like what she was doing was indeed having this deep impact in my body. So we go through our session. It was super cool. I was at that time absolute yes to taking the Reiki 1 and not really knowing that I was going to do anything with it. I think I was just curious about the energy and would I feel it and where would I feel it and what would I experience. And so I took that level 1 Reiki, and if you're not familiar with the level 1 training, It's you receiving some attunements, which is, it's a ritual that you go through to receive those. And the way that she taught it, I thought was so beautiful. And I actually still use that if and when I teach Reiki courses today, where I want people to experience. I'm an embodiment queen, so I can't teach you unless you're going to embody it, right? I want you to feel it. I want you to experience it in your body. That's the way I taught yoga. That's the way I teach everything, no matter what it is I'm teaching or even what I'm talking about. So my perspective was, okay, this is great that she's allowing us to sort of play with energy and to feel what that feels like. And I have many people I know, not only that I have trained, but I have many people I know that have taken Reiki 1. And this is something that felt really important, and it still feels really important today. One of the major tenets of doing a Reiki 1 attunement and training is that you are agreeing that you will use it on yourself first and foremost. You are your own best healer, and I think the ambitious side of us and the part of us that is longing for a purpose usually takes Reiki 1 with the intention that I'm going to go out and I'm going to heal all of these people. And that's beautiful and that's amazing. And if you are not actively tuning into your body, checking in, sending yourself love, clearing any stagnant energy, if you are not paying attention to your own vessel and getting yourself clear and right and tending to your vessel first and your being, then I think we've lost. You may have gone into Reiki 1 with a bit of a skewed perspective. And that's not even saying it right. That's just you, I love that you chose to do that. And yet so many people go into it thinking that they are going to heal all of these other people. And yes, you will and you can. But I want you to take care of yourself first. Put your hands on your body first. Get yourself feeling more aligned and more grounded and more connected. And so, this may be unwelcome advice from a master Reiki practitioner, but I've seen it too often. And it's a pattern that I recognize, and I lovingly say to you, great, learn Reiki 1 and go into it with the intention that that healing is for your greatest and highest good first and foremost. And it will serve you throughout, whether you go to Reiki 2, Reiki 3, Reiki Master, it will serve you throughout your entire endeavor, whatever it is that you desire to do with it. When I decided, after a short period of time, she offered a Reiki 2. And I was a yes to that. And I kind of went into it just going, I don't know why, but I'm going to say yes. That sounds cool. Because Reiki 2 is where you learn to send energy. Y'all, this is so juicy. This is one of my favorite things to do, to talk about, to experience, to hear what other people experience. And so Reiki 2 is primarily the practice of you being able to do long distance healing. And it looks like so many different things to so many different people. The best way I can describe Reiki 2 is that it's akin to you, like if you're, you're thinking of somebody, and they're not in your house, they're not maybe even the same city, they're not in the same state, they may not even be in the same country. And the way that this works is, on a basic level, is that you, just by you thinking of them, you are forging a connection. You are actually connecting to their energy, and you can picture them. And it's a skill that you build over time. And I can tell you that the sky is no limit when it comes to doing this practice. The way that it has metamorphosed for me was when I first learned it, the way that I was taught it was that you would set a preset time that you were going to work on this person, just like you would any other appointment. So you say, okay, 2:00 Friday, here's what's going to happen is I'm going to text you 15 minutes before. So at 1:45, I'm going to text you, and I want you to then prepare. I want you to get ready. So what I want you to do is I want you to go and sit or lie down. You can lie on the floor, your bed, the couch, doesn't matter. My only ask is that you are not doing something, that you're not doing the dishes, you're not folding clothes, you're not trying to be on your phone or anything else, but you are taking that time out for yourself to receive. Because the explicit part of a Reiki 2 training and your use of it is that there needs to be an agreement. It needs to be an exchange where I'm going to give you, but I'm also going to receive. And you are going to, from your body's perspective, your soul's perspective, you're going to give me information, and you're also going to receive. And that's an agreement that has to be made. I can't just go out, and nor should you, honestly. Somebody has to be open and willing to receive Reiki 2 before you start just giving it. Because you need the channel to be open. It needs to be a two-way communication system. Because people ask me all the time, oh, can you send my brother, healing energy? Like, can you fix him? And that's not the intention. That's not what you want to go into it for, because you can imagine how wrong that could all go, right? So many different ways on everybody's part. That puts me in a place where now I feel like I'm God and I can just heal anybody. And it also doesn't give the power of choice to the person who could receive this. And that's really important. So understand that with Reiki 2, that is a very important part of this, because I have also seen where some people feel as though that is a privilege of theirs to be able to do that, to just send Reiki 2. And if you're really aligned with what, not necessarily right or wrong, but you are dialoguing with something that is so much bigger than you. And I think that there needs to be sacredness around that. There needs to be some agreements around that you're willing to abide by, as are they. Much lesser so, but certainly, right? So the channel needs to be open. They need to know that they are going to receive it, that they're okay with receiving it, all is well. They're taking time for themselves to be able to, whatever that is. I've had people just fall totally asleep. I've had people who are fully in and with me in that experience. I have a great story around that that I can illustrate that point with. But where people are actively, they're experiencing almost the same thing I am on my end. So, and this is an example of where you can get to if you practice Reiki 2 enough. When I learned it, I would practice on my parents. And I was kind of surprised that they were open to it, but it was super amazing. And so I would say, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to send you healing. And if you can just sit or lie down for anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, but I'm going to give you an hour. And so if we said Friday at 2:00, my rule is that they can't call me until after 3:00. And the rule is that they have to call me, because if they fall asleep, your body does its best and highest good and its best healing when you are asleep. That is when your brain is turned off and things can just go without the brain getting in the way, right? The healing just flows. And the energy's not going to thinking, it's receiving and just letting your body do what it's designed to do. And so I remember that the first time I did this on my parents, who, to be honest, are not really in their bodies, and they don't really they tend to them in a certain way, right? They're great at taking vitamins, they eat well, but when it comes to really listening to the body and tuning into the body, that's not them. They've gotten better over the years, largely because of me, but, just building that awareness. So I do that on them. And one of the ways that it might start out is that, and there's many ways to do this, but all you're really trying to do is you're trying to just connect to them. Now, on the higher version of this, what's really happening when you do Reiki 2, when you do long distance healing, is that if you can imagine the oneness, because that's really what you're tapping into. It's like this open channel that exists in the cosmos. It's like a highway that you're just on-ramping onto. And if you've ever listened to the telepathy tapes, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's absolutely, essentially they're doing some version of this, right? They don't need a telephone. They don't need technology. It's just them and their mind, and they're connecting to source, something that you can't define it, but it is incredible. And so when I would tap into this in the early stages, it would be literally me picturing them and me just tuning into their bodies and letting their bodies and their souls just tell me, what do they need in this moment? Now, the beautiful thing about the human body is that it will prioritize what the needs are. So they may say, oh, my back really hurts. Could you just work on my back? Sure. However, I don't go into it thinking, okay, I'm just here to heal the back. I go into it with the mindset that, let's see what the body's priority is. Is that its greatest need right now? And I can tell you 9 out of 10 times it's not. It's not that thing that they're coming to me for or seeking help with. That's usually lower on the totem pole, so to speak, but it's usually lower priority for the body. There could be things that are so much better that are actually causing that pain. And I'll try and give you an example of that, where if somebody is experiencing back pain and they would like for that to be resolved, back pain, depending on where it is, if it's lower back especially, it can be due to relationship issues, financial issues. It can be them pushing down feelings. It can be them holding too tightly to something, to a belief, to something that somebody said to them. It can be just holding too tightly to something. And so if you go into it thinking, oh, I'm just going to heal this back pain, you're going to discover that there's so much more about that. The potential to actually heal their psyche, their emotions, their mind, and alleviate some of that stress. That's what you're really going to deal with. So it was really interesting to start to hear their perspective of, well, I've sort of felt this happen. And could that be possible? Absolutely. And I also felt that. And I usually take notes and I write down what's the priority. What did I feel in my body? What did I see? What did I experience? What's the message underlying it all? And what's fascinating about the human body, and this is why I love the body so much, this is why I love being human, is because there is a dormant intelligence inside each and every one of us that we aren't even aware of. I'm going to say 99% of the population has no idea how powerful and amazing and loving the human body is. Like it has at all times your greatest and highest good as its priority. And it really just needs time and devotion, attention, focus for that to happen. And that's like, I will probably go to my grave still talking about this. Thus the podcast. So Reiki 2, right? This is like a new level where I make sure that I'm clear. I make sure that I'm feeling grounded, that I'm connected to myself. I'm connected to my higher version of myself as well as source. So now I'm going into it. And you'll notice, like, if you're watching this podcast at all, you're going to notice that I close my eyes more when I get into this stuff. And it just sort of happens, but that's me tuning in so that I can really speak to what it is that is in here and what I'm feeling while I'm still connected upstairs. So it just happens. I apologize. I'm not trying to be rude, but it's just me tuning in deeper. Once you learn Reiki 2, boy, I tell you, it opens you up to so many possibilities that you begin to learn the language of the body. And even beyond that, I truly believe that you begin to learn the language of the soul. And by this, I want to go back to the last podcast when I talked about my injury on my left side, right? If you remember, or if you listened to it, if not, go back, listen to it. I talk about an accident that really just impacted the left side of my body. I wasn't aware of it at the time. And this is the way that I view masculine and feminine energies. And not everybody agrees with me. That's okay. I don't necessarily want you to. I'm open to other options. But for me, the left side of the body, and if you're watching this or even listening to this, I want you to just take a moment to feel the left side of your body. Actively touch the left side of your body, right? Our heart's slightly more to the left, your spleen, right? There's certain aspects to the left side of the body that the right side doesn't have. And then there's many things they have in common. You have lungs on both sides. You have arms on both sides. Most of us, we have kidneys on both sides, all those things. But there are things that are unique to the left side. Now, when I learned, and this is a language I developed on my own, this is something I arrived at just through my experiences, that the left side was the feminine side of the body to me. The left side could share feelings more than the right side. So the left side would send me information on a soul level, on a human level, on a physical level that indicated that their heart was hurting. There was grief there. There was sadness. There was abandonment. There was protection. There was pain there. And when we look at what feminine energy is, it is feeling, it is sensing, it is being. It is you as a human being and not a human doing. And I say being intentionally with even a hyphen there because I feel strongly that when you can come into stillness and when you can slow everything down, slow your body down, slow your breathing down, slow your being down, you are now just a human who is, right? You know, I often think to myself, we should ask people, how do you be instead of how are you doing? Because there's so much more value sometimes in just us being, right? But that's not what we're trained to do. So the left side always indicated to me that there was this very soft, very gentle, very feeling oriented, very emotional, very sensitive side. And the right side of the body, and this was part of the reason I developed this understanding and came to this conclusion, was every time someone came to me that was overdoing, that was constantly in a state of push, a state of doing all the time, feeling like they had to do all the things, and there was no off switch, and they were just on all the time, you know, taking on all the responsibility, everything. The right side of the body would convey that message, and it would say, I'm exhausted. I literally, I can't take on anymore. I am at capacity. I need help. And that would show up in a variety of ways, right? It would show up as stuck energy. It would show up as very sporadic and even eruptive energy, right? Like fireworks coming out of people's feet and legs and hips and things like that, where it was just like, I can't take on one more thing, which was super interesting to experience. But it was my way of interpreting the left and the right side, the masculine, the feminine, and really beginning to understand that if somebody showed up, and after you do 100 people, right, that's enough of a scientific study for me to say, okay, I'm seeing a pattern here, that I see this person in their life who is absolutely overwhelmed. They are completely out of their bodies. They are overdoing everything, and they're putting so much pressure on themselves, and they feel like they're carrying the weight of the world. And I would feel that in their body and in their soul on the right side of the body. And, you know, the opposite was true for the left side. So for me, it just became this natural evolution of, okay, yeah, I can see these, because we all have masculine, we all have feminine energies in us. It's just, how do we balance them, right? How are they showing up or not showing up? And so eventually with Reiki 2, that's what I started to experience in people, was this information the body was sharing with me to let me know where it was at, what its level of capacity was, what it was experiencing, what it was feeling, and what it was ready to get rid of, what it didn't want to carry anymore. And it was restoring balance, which is the way I was taught. I was taught that we need to restore balance to this vessel, to this being, to their doing and their being. And it's a whole nother topic for another day of why this is and why I see it. I see it in men and women, but it's slightly different for men. There's a lot of pressure on men to perform, to be productive. And that's also there for women, but I guess the expectation is slightly different for each of us, right? The outcome. So this is something that, I started to really tend to and started going deeper into that whole wormhole of masculine and feminine and really starting to explore all of the facets of those things. What are some of the masculine traits? What are some of the feminine traits? And just so that I could have another language to explain to people what I sense is happening in your body. And every time I would explain it to them in that language versus me just saying, gosh, it seems like you've been doing a lot. Does it feel like you're doing too much? Yes. But then I could explain it with that counterbalance of what the body needs in terms of those feminine energies. Like, when was the last time that you listened to your heart? When was the last time that you checked in with your gut, with your solar plexus, with your womb space? Like, are you doing that at all? Because it's really important if you're not. And all, I suppose, in an effort to make them more aware of bringing some balance into their lives, energetically, physically, mentally, emotionally, and give them another tool to use to be able to check in with their own bodies and just see what's going on in there. And eventually what starts to happen is you can understand where this pain that they're feeling in their bodies comes from. And you also start to see where the contraction is. You can sense where the fear lives, and you can even start to ask them so that they get clear about that. And that's whether you're in person or distance healing. But there was one time, and she knows who she is, so if she ever listens to this podcast, I don't think she'll mind me sharing this story, but this is where it can go eventually, because this is about you really starting to develop your clairs. This is about you starting to develop this deeper sense of knowing. And the beautiful thing about developing that deeper sense of knowing is that it not only helps you trust in the divine more, but it also helps you develop a deeper trust in yourself, in your body, and in your intuition and what you sense and feel, which is where the magic really just begins, as far as I'm concerned. So fast forward, actually take it back maybe a couple of years ago, and I have a dear friend that she's in Arizona, she has two homes, so she was living part-time in one and part in the other. And I worked on her in both locations. But there was one time when she was in Arizona, and we never knew what was going to show up or who. And I'm working on her, and amazing things happening where I'm seeing animal totems showing up for her, spirit animals. I'm seeing and feeling, she's got guides. She's got people who are there to support her and to love on her and to help bring her into a greater state of peace, alignment, all of those things. And all of a sudden, I've been in her home in Arizona, and I'm picturing her front door blowing open, and her foyer, her house, there's water coming in. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is interesting. Okay. And I have no idea, right? Because we're not talking. We set our time. There's no phone on. There's no camera. It's just her in her space and I'm in my space and I'm just connecting. And I see this storm and I see the water coming in, and I can sense that there's this roiling, right? There's this turmoil, and it's not in her, but it does feel on some level like there's this transformation that's happening around her. And it involves water with emotions. It, feels like this big gust, this big push, if you will, coming in. And the next thing I know and I recall is I see her standing, she's in the desert, and I see her standing in a little stream of water. And she's facing the opposite direction of where the water, so she's facing where the water is coming from. She's not with the water at her heels flowing that direction. This is her toes facing the direction that the water is coming from. And the storm has largely passed. There's still some dark clouds in the sky. And I just remember this sense of feeling, wow, this is super interesting. I wonder what this all means. And so at her time that she can call me back, she calls me back within a short amount of time from our session. And she said, what did you feel or experience on your end? So I start telling her. And I start describing the door flying open. And I start seeing the water. And I'm describing her standing in the stream. And she said to me, Deb, that happened. There was a storm brewing outside, and the wind was blowing so strong, and she was actually in a whole separate building. So she has her house and she has a casita, and she's in the casita. She's not even in the house, and yet she recognizes, even in her state of resting and lying down, that there's a storm. And she just has a sense that she needs to go into the house. And so she goes into the house and the front door is wide open and there's water coming in. So she gets the towels and she's mopping it up. The storm is over. She's thinking to herself, crap, I'm ruining this session. I'm now somewhat disconnected from Deb. I hope that, I hope this doesn't screw things up. And she decides, we're probably disconnected anyway, so I'm just going to go outside and just, for whatever reason, I'm just going to go stand in this stream. And she goes outside, and she does, in fact, stand with her toes pointing the direction the water's coming from. Probably just as an act of purification, of grounding, connecting on a deeper level. And when she described to me that was, in fact, exactly what had happened, there was a sense that you can't make this up. And also, I was fully aware of, this is what's possible when you begin to develop and connect with the oneness that is, that you have this potential and anybody can do it. I'm here to tell you, I'm not special. I have other friends that can do this, and on an even more profound level. But this isn't something I started out being able to do. This is something that over time developed. And there were times I questioned it. And when I would get a message from their soul, I'd write it down. And most of the time I was thinking, this sounds crazy. I don't even know if I'm going to tell them this. And then when I would tell them that thing, they would go, nope, that's crazy, because that's exactly what I was thinking, feeling, sensing, whatever, doing. So it's imperative, and this is why I say, Reiki 1, make sure that you are connected to yourself first. that you are in your body, that you become present with what is in your body, and stay grounded in that, because you will need that. And that's the biggest part of the practice, that yes, you will help other people heal, but hopefully you're helping them come into their body more fully and sense and feel and recognize the potential they have to heal and to connect to Source. And then by the time you get to Reiki 2 and you learn how to appropriately work on somebody from a distance, that you begin developing some of those other skills that really, who knows? Maybe you start to see colors too, or maybe you start to develop your own language around what you're perceiving and how you interpret that for their greatest and highest good. And you really become this person who, when we look at healers and the way that we work, we all sort of arrive there differently. And for many of us, we become healers because we're seeking healing. The things that I've learned as far as healing modalities are things I've needed the most. So if you're feeling called to do Reiki and learn that, it's probably something you need the most, right? You need to sort of learn that foundational skill. And I don't even remember, but it was probably 3 years later when I decided ultimately to do my Reiki 3/Master Reiki training. And I appreciate that my mentor took it seriously. She had never done a Master Reiki certification before, and she went with what she felt was right and would serve me best. And I think she just did a glorious job of doing that. So if she's listening to this, Paula, I love you. You taught me well and, helped sort of initiate me into my own gifts as well as using yours. And you don't have to be a healer to be in your body. You don't have to know any healing modality to become present with yourself, to come into your being and check in and say, what am I experiencing in this moment? Wherever your hands land, we naturally take our hands to those parts of our bodies that we feel the most pain, or that we're feeling discomfort, or that we just feel drawn to, right? The hands just naturally go there. I have a headache. Where do your hands go? To your head or your neck? My back hurts. What do your hands do? They go to your back. My knee hurts. So it's a natural thing. And you don't have to be formally trained to be your own best healer. What you really just need is to slow down, to be for a period of time, and check in with yourself and figure out what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, what are you sensing, and what is your body trying to tell you? Because there's a reason you feel pain. There's a signal trying to get sent to you to get your attention, to tell you, I could use a little help here. Hey, just a loving awareness around this. And every time your body, and I will tell you, as being someone who suffered from chronic pain, I got really tired of feeling the pain signal every day. And I learned years later that the pain signal can become a habit. it's crazy, but your body literally becomes a habitual thing. So you may not actually be in pain, but the signal is still being sent because it's so used to sending it and not getting an answer that it just keeps dialing up that number and sending the message. And so part of working with chronic pain is learning to circumvent that signal of interrupting it. And there's certainly ways to do that. There's more than one. And at some point, hopefully, we'll talk about those too. However, there's a reason you feel pain. It's information. And if you can begin to look at that pain signal as the most loving, kind, benevolent information that your body is trying to tell you something is wrong. Can you help me? Can you tend to this? And sometimes it's literally just you pausing long enough to get the message. Because sometimes it's as simple as, you know what, I just need a hug from somebody. I need to be heard. I need to be held. I need to be having a cup of tea right now. I need whatever it is, right? So if you can begin to use your body as an ally, not as your enemy, because it's really easy when you're in chronic pain to think, I don't want any part of this. I don't want to be in here. I don't want to feel things. I get it. I completely get it. I really do. There are times when this vessel is the scariest place to be. It's the worst place to be. I don't want to feel any of this. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to feel the hurt. I don't want to know what could be wrong, right? I have a lot of friends who have a lot of fear about, like, oh my God, do I have cancer? Am I dying? They're great hypochondriacs and I love them, but they go there every time. Like, oh, what am I feeling? I'm feeling this. Oh my God, it's probably bad, right? It's bad. I know I'm going to die. Go ahead. You can tell me. And that's just not, that's the mind and the fear coming through. But I think if we can just redefine the way that we look at our bodies, that they're not our enemies, that this is not an unsafe place to live in, that our bodies truly are the one place that we should call home. They are the place that we should be living from and in. And yet, again, 99% of us, we're in here. We're living in our heads. We're not even in our bodies. And I'm going to tell you that I don't think I've ever worked on a person who was in their body, that I could feel that they were present and home, that they knew they had feet, ankles, knees, thighs, unaware, unless they were hurting. And that was the only way they knew they had them. And I've worked on a lot of people. I don't know how many. So know that also when you start to do Reiki, if you choose that path to do Reiki, connecting with energy, the number one thing you're going to spend those first few minutes of your session doing is getting them back in their body, calling them home. Come back into this vessel. This is your inner landscape, your inner world, your inner being is like it's crying out for you to come back. And it needs you to be present. So if you decide that you want to take this route, it has given me so much. It has informed me and my body so much. It has taught me so much about presence, and that is something that I really hope to give you a better sense of what does that mean to be present. And in your body and to help facilitate you having a better experience there. If for no other reason than just to tap back into the fact that, you're a pretty sacred being. And sacredness is presence. It is you being fully in your body, inhabiting every part of it. So that's my hot take on the Reiki and on energy and what is possible. And whether you're thinking about exploring that or not, that's a choice that you get to make. I haven't done, Reiki certifications in a really long time. I don't know why, just hasn't been my focus, but it is the foundation of my practice. Energetic work is definitely the foundation of what I do. And so, happy to have conversations with anybody around that, but it's a really valuable, wonderful healing modality. So if you choose to do that, I'm here for it. But it's not for everybody, and that's great too. We all bring different gifts to the table and practice different modalities. So that's the beauty of all the different things that are out there to help us just reconnect and connect to that oneness that is, that beautiful oneness. So thank you for joining me today. And as always, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this topic. Are you a fan of Reiki? Are you a practitioner? What's your experience? What's your experience with your body? And, if you've received Reiki, I always love hearing stories about, what that was like for people. So thanks for joining me today. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for being here and being present.